Welcome back, book besties and love bugs. Thank you for spending some of your Wednesday con Wilma this Wednesday. We are going to be getting into what you guys voted for me to read. Thank you so much for all of that from Instagram and all of my followers. I really appreciate you participating. And without further ado, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Let's get into it. No brainer, you know, Debí Tirar Más Fotos Inspired Book Series 1. So we're going to get into what those books are because they were kind of introduced earlier on in the year and the order of which I'm going to read them. So let's get into it. I'm currently reading Defectors by Paula Ramos, The Rise of the Latino Far Right and What It Means for America. And this book is so infuriating, not because of Paola or anything that she writes, anything of her, but just the defecting of the Latinos that she has been like interviewed. She does a good job of like going way back in history and being like, this isn't the first time, people defect and the why. So I've been taking my time with it, especially because the political climate that we're in, it's really hard to dive deep into that space and kind of feel like a sympathetic ear or I don't know. Either way, I've been reading it. I'm probably like one third into it, and I do have to like put it down and kind of sit with it because it's a lot of wow, you guys really came over here and like did this far out there assimilation and you don't see the just the demise and the own like division that you're doing. Like it's already bad that we have this other doing it to us, but now it's within us. It's very hard. So it's a hard read for sure, especially with you when you're like a touchy feely like me. It's really hard, but it is a good read and it has a lot of great information. So Defectors is one that I will be kind of like reading a little bit. I have to kind of take it in doses, especially because the current climate that are in is like I need to escape. I need to read something else. So this is definitely one of the books that was inspired by this series because although a lot of the other books are going to dive into like the historical aspects of Puerto Rico and other Latin American countries, it's also prevalent to know about this as well because you're going to have ops at every way and they're going to look like you sometimes because that is the tenet of white supremacy. It doesn't show up in with the way that we think it is in that historical context. It shows up by folks coming or growing up into this country and believing that the goal is this aspiration to whiteness and to the point where it causes so much harm within their own community. So we will be reading this and doing a full dive into this one. I said it before. War Against All Puerto Ricans, The Revolution and Terror in America's Colony by Nelson A. Dennis is going to be a reread for me. And I'm probably going to start the series with this book because there's some story time as to how I even came into this book. This is a book I would have definitely picked up on my own. Um, but it came to me by a unique situation. So I want to give that backstory and everything that comes with it. So we will be reading War Against Puerto Ricans. There's so much information in here. Ooh, there's so many things that were introduced that started a lot of like, I don't want to say radicalization because I feel like I was already there, but just probably sparked even more. Next, the main book of it all, Puerto Rico and National History by Jorell Meléndez-Badillo. This is the historian that helped Bad Bunny with all of his writings for the visualizers for Debí Tirar Más Fotos. It is a pretty thick book. I am very, very interested into getting into it and reading about the colony of Puerto Rico through the eyes of this historian. So I am excited to really, really get into it. And this book, I'm telling you, it's flying off the shelves every time I go to see it because I want to gift it to another friend. I'm like, when the hell is it going to be back in stock? And it's also written in English and in Spanish. I got the English translation, but I am very, very interested into getting into this book. This book is in Spanish, so this will stretch my Spanish reading muscle. La crisis política en Puerto Rico, segunda edición con el epilógico 20 años después, by Juan M. Garcia Pasalacuara. I'm gonna work on that. This is a book that was gifted to me while I was in Puerto Rico. So, like I said, it is discussing the crises of the political situation in Puerto Rico. I'm going to get into it. It's going to stretch my reading muscle in Spanish, and so important for me because that's one of my goals for myself. So this will be for this book. Next is Velorio. Translated, it will be funeral. It's by Xavier Navarro Aquino. This novel was inspired through the Hurricane Maria um, hurricane that happened in 2018. Um, it is a novel, so it won't be one of our historical contexts, but it will play on those political things and all of that aftermath from the hurricane within the story, within the context of the story. So definitely wanted to pick this up and read this as well as we see how those political things and those aspects affect the art. Next is the community activist Oscar López Rivera's Between Torture and Resistance book. He was convicted of a thought crime, seditious conspiracy, and was never accused of causing anyone actual harm or taking a life, but he was thrown in jail. Um, and he stood up for a lot of necessary rights that Puerto Ricans weren't getting, especially in the area of Chicago. I was able to hear him speak, so we'll also get into that experience because that ties into the war against the world, war against all Puerto Ricans experience. I was able and fortunate enough to meet him in person. That was such a great experience. So I will be reading this as part of the series. Next, An African American and Latina History of the United States by Paula Ortiz. I definitely ran when I saw this book. I needed it. There is such rich history of Latina and Black folks working together in this country more than working against each other. And that type of solidarity needs to really be um, taught and revamped, and remember that we are one and the same in this space. And so I'm very anxious and excited to get into this book and see exactly like around the time of the Black Panthers, the Rainbow Coalition, Young Lords, um, who else? The Chicanos, all of those folks that did such amazing work for their communities and eventually worked with one another. So want to get into that, and that will be part of the series. Next will be Harvest of Empire, A History of Latinos in America by Juan Gonzalez. I was told that there's a documentary that also accompanies the text. So I'll look in that on YouTube. But this also talks a lot about those United States I don't want to say influence, but more like meddling within a lot of Latin American countries and the things and tactics that they've done to like destabilize those countries. So I always knew of these things, but I definitely want the text and the historical context to back up that knowing. And so Harvest of Empire, which is a pretty thick book. So a lot of this is very dense. So please stick with me through this series. We're all going to be learning a lot, or we're going to be enhancing what we already know. So for sure, this series is going to be a lot of like, and no, they didn't, and oh my gosh, and I didn't know. So I'm here with you for all of that. So this is another book of historical historical fact influencing the art is Where They Burn Bodies, They Also Burn Books by Marcos Antonio Hernandez. Um, so this is in takes place in 1549. Convinced he's destined to fulfill a whispered prophecy, Friar Diego de Landa labors to convert the Maya of the Yucatan Peninsula. Discovering a brutal Spanish landowner persecuting the native population, Friar Diego determines to protect them and punish the cruel man. But when he repatriates thousands of Maya, uproot centuries of indigenous traditions, and priest obsessions may end up destroying them all. In 2010, Cortez Buscal is convinced his father will return if he can grow their church's congregation. Certain he's found his true love and believing they can attract churchgoers together, Cortez sets out to win her from wealthy and unfaithful boyfriend, but his fascination with the famous literature she's reading infects his mind with a deadly descent into madness. Can these men save their religion without destroying what they love? Interesting. It's also pretty thick. So definitely want to get into this. These are the books that I'll be reading for the next few weeks. Follow this series with me. And let's get into it. This is what you voted for. So, muchísimas gracias. Lo vamos a hacer juntos. Dale, chao, bye. Also, before you go, don't forget to follow, like, share, subscribe, not only this page, but go on Instagram and TikTok and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and follow my podcast, The Boricua Culture Mix, with my co-host Diane Rivera. We talk about so many cultural aspects of the Puerto Rican existence, both diaspora and island, building that bridge. So give it a listen. I'll link below. Gracias. Ciao. Bye. Besitos.